In this video, I want to talk to you about a minimal approach to productivity. I call this minimum viable productivity. And it's all based around this meme where you have a midwit who is very literate in productivity advice. Maybe he's read a bunch of books, taken some courses. And when they think of productivity, they think of something like this. They think of a knowledge graph in Obsidian, or like a series of templates in Notion, or a personal knowledge management system that keeps track of all their notes and favorite articles and stuff in a Google Drive and is organized in some sophisticated way. And so that's the midwit, and he's obviously suffering. But on the left-hand side, you have the bottom wit, who is completely uninitiated into the realm of productivity. He's never read a book in his life ever, let alone on productivity. And all he does is use Apple Notes to keep track of his tasks and to plan his day. And then all the way at the high end of the IQ curve, you have the top wit, who this guy might be like a founder or an executive, a CEO. And he also uses Apple Notes to keep track of all his tasks and to get things done. A lot of people will get some sort of intuitive recognition when they see this. Maybe you'll place yourself somewhere in this bell curve. And today I want to suggest to you that there's wisdom in the Apple Notes using CEO, and to give you a way to think about this. So this is going to be more of like a philosophical video than a practical one, but we'll talk a little bit about how you can try it out at the end. And so my one-liner for this is that productivity systems, for the most part, are procrastination tools for slow decision makers. And when you have someone who's in a high-velocity role, like a CEO, they can't afford to make decisions slowly. So they find a minimum viable approach to get things done, which might be Apple Notes or writing things by hand. So how should we think about productivity? I like to ask people, what is productivity? And maybe you can take a moment and think about, if you were to have a productive day, what does that look like? How do you describe a productive day? And here are a few definitions that I've heard before. So first is moving things you want to move in the direction you want to move them. So it's like a stone that you're moving up a hill or something. And I like how this is a physical metaphor because you're physically moving things, but it's also vague enough that it could be anything. There's also your ratio of output to input. This is more of an economist's definition of productivity, but it's also relevant at the personal level, which is how much effort, input, are you putting in, how much time, and what are you getting? What are the results you're getting for that? And the better the relationship there, the more productive you are. And then there's another thing, which is some people call this effectiveness, but it's getting the right things done. So it's not the number of tasks. It's not output in general. It's the right tasks, the right output. These are all pretty common definitions, and I want to introduce a new one today to think about this minimum viable version of productivity. And it's the optimal synthesis of reflection and action. So this sounds a little like a Zen koan or something, but really it's about the relationship between these two phenomena, reflecting on things and acting on them. I like to represent this using these emojis. So action or engagement, which is maybe a more general term, is represented by the hand. So you're physically doing things in the world, whether it's building a shed in the backyard or typing up an essay, you're physically typing. And then reflection is represented by the eye, where you're looking at your situation from a higher horizon. Maybe it's a higher time horizon. Maybe you're reflecting on what you're actually doing. And I suggest to you that if you're engaging without much reflection, you're not going to be that productive. And if you're reflecting without much engagement, you're definitely not going to be that productive. The midwit spends too much time reflecting, not enough time engaging. And we want to find a relationship between these two where they're mutually supporting each other. Here are some examples. So for a lot of people who spend time on their computers and stuff, engagement is digital. And you have things like writing a document, but a Google Doc, not by hand, not a physical document, or sending an email, designing slides. These are all ways to engage with your responsibilities. And then examples of reflection are these types of things, like asking yourself, what is the next action? Or what is the ideal outcome? What is the thing that I actually want out of this? Goal setting is a form of engagement. Reflection. OKRs are a form of reflection. The weekly review from David Allen's Getting Things Done, that's a form of reflection. Also journaling and asking deep existential questions about your life, or getting into rich, truth-oriented dialogue is a form of reflection. What's so interesting about these symbols is when you put them side by side, you realize that they're familiar. And I don't know if this has anything to do with the actual history of the Hamza, but this symbol, but it's a really good teaching device for this idea where when in doubt, if you think, oh, maybe I'm that midwit who has too many tools and systems, just remember this image of a hand with an eye, because these two things must be working together. They must be working in tandem. So I want to give you one way to operationalize this, to do just a little bit of reflection, so a little bit of the eye stuff, so that you can quickly get to engagement, which is the hand stuff. And all of this can be done using Apple Notes, or in this case, Google Docs. And it's a little mini version of GTD. So GTD is something you can look up if you're not familiar with, but it's like the classic productivity Bible. And it has 5 steps, which is capture, clarify. And then there's these 2 steps in the middle: organize, review, and engage. And what you do here is you capture your tasks, your responsibilities, you clarify what they are, and then you got to organize them in a system and then review that system across time. And this is where people get tripped up. This is where the midwits come in, where they create these complicated, intricate systems. And they have difficulty reviewing them frequently enough because they're so complicated. And so they never really get to the engage step. I suggest to you to try minimum GTD, where you just delete these steps entirely. And you open a Google Doc and you just capture a bunch of things that are on your mind, like these. And then you pick something that seems less clear than the others. So in this case, conflict with a roommate. And then you bring that to the clarify step and you just ask yourself these 2 questions. What is the outcome that I want? So in this case, my conflict is resolved and the roommate and I are on good terms. And the next action is, what is the next physical thing I have to do in the world to get incrementally closer to this? Well, I need to talk to the roommate, so texting the roommate for a time to chat is probably a reasonable next physical action. And what you do then is you take out your phone and you send a text to your roommate. It's as simple as this. So to tie this in with the model from before, these are both forms of reflection because we're capturing things that are in our head. We're reflecting on what is it that's actually occupying the back of my mind. This should take no more than 5 minutes, and you can do this every day. And then clarify is when you select one of these things that requires a little bit more. And then you also reflect. You're asking these questions. What is the outcome that I want? What is the next action? And as soon as you know this, you just take the next action. Where is it? You just take the next action. I can't find a hand. We'll use that for now.